You're listening to The Photography Pod, the ultimate podcast for photography lovers. And here's your hosts, Steve Vaughan and Martin Chung.
Hello again and welcome to The Photography Pod. My name is Steve Vaughan. My good friend here, Martin Chung, is with me as well.
And I'm Martin Chung. Sorry, I butted in a fraction of a second too early.
But away.
Keen to get going.
So this is a podcast for both professional photographers and also enthusiasts. It's got a Sony flavour to it, but it doesn't mean it's a Sony-only podcast. You know, we all use Sony cameras on the pod, but it doesn't mean this is for Sony people. It's home to anybody with any flavour or any particular type of camera. So how are you, Martin?
I'm good, Steve. How are you?
Well, I just got back from my holiday like you, actually. So I've been touring California for a week, driving down the Pacific Coast Highway, taking lots of photos and doing lots of video, which I'll probably not do anything with because I'm into wedding season now, but perhaps I might get around to looking at it at some stage. And you've been away, I think, haven't you?
Yeah, but yours beats mine. Me and my wife went to Tenerife for a few days.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And it was nice. And we took a few photos as well, but we didn't take our cameras. We stopped doing that years ago, unfortunately.
Yeah, when you do it for a living, it's not so much fun, is it, really? So
yeah, exactly.
I went with this, actually. I bought a Ricoh GR3X. So I bought it to do some street photography, which I never did in the end, but that's all I took.
I'm actually seriously considering buying a little camera, so I don't have to lug everything around.
That's
but the problem is, but the problem is once you get used to like the full frame goodness and the fast lenses and everything, getting a little point and shoot, you sort of think, I might as well just use my phone. At least I've always got it on me. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's got an APS-C sensor. But anyway, we'll talk about that another time. Anyway, we're chatting along, and there's a guy looking at us actually wondering what the hell we're talking about because we have a guest on the show today, and that's Nick Church. Nick, hi, how are you?
Hi, Steve. Yeah, I'm great. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. So you're a professional photographer, also shooting Sony, I think, as well?
Yeah, so I'm using two A7 IV bodies at the moment. I've got a couple of A7 IIIs as well, or R3s that I use for video and when I need extra angles and things like that. But yeah. So I shoot weddings and then commercial sort of properties and things like that as well.
Have you always been a Sony shooter, Nick, or have you come from another system?
I came from the dark side. So I came from I started on a Olympus Micro Four Thirds system. That's my first camera, and then went into a full frame Nikon setup when I started doing weddings. And then, Sony with the A7 R3 seemed like it was the first body that was with the technology involved and the speed of it compared with the older versions was the first one that I think was a compelling reason to jump ship from a DSLR type technology. And haven't looked back since, just love it.
Yeah, the older ones were, I think, were they the first generation or second generation? I can't even remember now. But prior to that, the A7 and the A7 II, etc., they were not good for weddings. They just lock up, wouldn't they? You take 5 photos and the whole thing would just lock up until it finished. Yeah.
So I'm sure we'll talk a bit more about gear as we go on. But first of all, let's find out a bit more about yourself, Nick. So how long have you been a wedding photographer?
Yeah, not that long. I mean, obviously, years. Every time I answer that question, it gets longer, obviously. But, I think I got my first camera in 2015, so I was really late to the industry compared with a lot of people, and I didn't have that, first camera when I was 8 and degree in photography and been shooting for 25 years. That isn't my journey at all. I just came to it really late and just fell in love with it immediately. And so that was in about 2015. I did my first wedding in 2016.
Wow.
Haven't looked back since.
And what were you doing before then?
So at the time, I was a CTO, so sort of technical director of a software company. So I had a really busy, really demanding job. And trying to combine those two things actually is I'm doing talks at the photography show this year, is the subject of those talks of how you navigate that. I know you guys both have as well, have gone through that process of trying to juggle the two and try not to just be completely crap at both of them at the same time and still see your family and your friends all at the same time. So it's a tough old journey, but the rewards are just outstanding. So
when you first started out, how long was it before you decided, right, this business I've started has legs?
Yeah, it was a weird thing because it was kind of by accident. I kind of became a wedding photographer by accident. That I was taking photos just like we all do when we've first got our first decent camera, and you just start exploring photography, taking shots of everything I could to and from work. I'd be taking shots around Bristol and things like that. And I started exhibiting those photos in a couple of local art fairs and things like that, and was starting to sell prints and, framed prints and things. And this lady asked me, she was about to buy, she was going through her purse trying to find money for this print. And she said, "Do you shoot weddings?" And in my head, I was thinking, right, obviously not. I'm not going to do that because I haven't got time. I don't know how to do it. And I can't cope with the extra stress of that. But my mouth completely stitched me up and said, "I'd love to." So, so before I knew it, I had this wedding book. And as you know, like the problem with weddings is that lead time between taking the booking fees and all that stuff, is long before actually having to actually do the job, So you think this is great, all this side income. And then suddenly you have to actually shoot weddings.
So how long was it between your mouth said yes and...
So that was I think there was about 10 months between that booking and her wedding. But then once I got immersed in wedding photography, like Facebook groups and learning about it and all those sorts of things, I picked up a few more bookings before then. So that first year I probably did maybe 4 or 5. Then the year after, including her one, was about 15 or so.
Wow.
Okay. So by the time you shot her wedding, you'd already done some more.
Yeah. So it turned out not even to be the first one. It was So it was so. I said to her, and I always say, that you read a lot of sort of photographers often give advice of you must not shoot a wedding or any, because it's such an important day. You definitely shouldn't shoot a wedding without an experience. You have to have done loads of second shooting. As long as they know what your level of experience are and they're comfortable with that because they're getting a cheaper price, that's absolutely fine. And you just need to, as long as you're not trying to pull the wool over someone's eyes and pretend you've done 100 weddings. Absolutely. So actually, I did all that to her to say that, I'm not, this would be my first wedding, but I'm pretty sure I can do a really good job for you. As it turned out, I'd done sort of 4 or 5 before that. So
interesting.
Yeah, no, that's good. So how did you know much about weddings in general when you first took it on? When you say you immersed yourself, was it more in the how to shoot wedding photography, or did you even know how timelines worked and things like that?
That in hindsight, that is something, because I didn't assist anybody, I didn't do second shooting, and I probably should have gone to a wedding beforehand to at least work out when things tend to happen.
You've never been to a wedding before either?
I've been to my own wedding and a couple of friends. But, so you kind of, vaguely, but, like when you're a wedding guest, you're pissed, aren't you? So you can't remember what actually happens. And so...
You don't see half of it either, do you, as a guest?
No, you see the bar. And then you see the car park. It was a bit of a baptism of fire, that first one, and you are just frantically thinking about all of the things that you need to do. And I think that is why I don't think you need necessarily to have experience of weddings, but you do need to be at that place where your camera is a bit of an extension of you. You need to be so confident in changing settings, reacting to light changing. So at least you're not worrying about that as well, because there's enough to worry about already, about where they're going, what's happening now, and it's confetti, so you got enough to stress about. So at least if you don't have to worry about dialing in the right settings, then that takes a lot of the stress away, I found.
I think that's a very good point, because there are distinct phases in a wedding, aren't there? As we all know, the getting ready, the ceremony, confetti, and all those things. And once you've got the bit of experience and you know roughly what kind of settings you're going to be working with, for confetti run, then you're going to go into a dark reception. That'll just take away some of the stress of it already, certainly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think from what you're saying and what Steve just said, if you are looking to be a wedding photographer, would you agree that you need definitely a foundation level of skill on the photography side, so that, your settings, and obviously you need settings, but they need to be almost instinctive
I think you need to be, you don't, as I said, I don't think you need experience of weddings necessarily, but you definitely don't want to go into it if there's the remotest chance you're going to completely cock it up. And when we all start our journey in photography, that's a massive likelihood. So you get past that through putting your own legwork in, and sort of doing all the heavy lifting in just shooting things like the cat and your family and birthday parties and things like that. And that's a really good kind of way to sort of just soften that kind of ramp up that you get.
Yeah. I was going to say, I've just seen over the years where, occasionally on some of the Facebook groups, you'll see someone going, I've agreed to do a wedding and it's going to be my first wedding. What settings should I use? And you're just like, oh God, you're not ready for this.
Exactly. If you don't know how to use if you don't understand the exposure triangle and the basic camera settings, you shouldn't be anywhere near a wedding.
But that's the classic thing, isn't it? Of, see a great photo. What settings was it? Because as if those settings are the things that cause the photo. And your settings are something that's a result of you appraising a scene and how you want to shoot it. It's not something you dial in first and then
people, the shot. I'm sure you guys are the same, but people say like, what settings did you use to get this photo? And I'm like, I have no idea.
I don't know about you, but I always shoot aperture priority at a wedding. Does anybody shoot all manual?
Manual with auto ISO.
Manual auto, and you're totally manual, Nick.
Yeah, since I used to on DSLR because just with DSLR there's such a higher chance of going outside and taking 200 shots of a pure white frame because you haven't had time to and that when I was in that place of not really having so much going on at the same time to be checking my meter all the time, so I used to use aperture priority all the time. As soon as I went to Sony and you can actually see what shot I was taking, absolutely. I just found I was just moving to manual and then manual ISO as well.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah, the only time I go manual is if I'm doing flash work, really. But I guess likewise, variations to of.
But it's a tool, isn't it? And as in the courses that I do, it's definitely no snobbishness around aperture priority, and it's a perfectly brilliant way to take one little bit of something you've got to do manually, make it automatic, but as long as you understand what it's doing for you. Yeah. But having that is because you don't understand manual, I think is probably something that's a bit risky if you're going into something like a wedding.
Completely.
I always see it like driving a car. When you learn, like our son's driving a car, learning's driving at the moment, and we're saying you need to learn in a manual.
Absolutely.
Once you've learned a manual, if later he decides to get an automatic, fine, go do it. No one cares. And on holiday, we hired an automatic car just so it's one less thing to think about when I'm on the wrong side of the road. But obviously that's knowing how to use a manual car. And I see this very much as the same. Shoot manual, and then if you want to shoot something else, just do it.
When you get old like me, you always drive automatics.
Yeah, it's just so much easier.
Oh, I love it, yeah. Particularly in the States, because it's all automatics over there, of course. Yeah.
After you've done your first wedding, everything went well, and then you did more and more and more. At what point did you decide, this is it? I don't want to do my day job anymore. I'm going to go full time.
Yeah, good question. To get to that point, I mean, this is going back to the photography show stuff. That's it. You end up in what I call the death zone, which is a mountaineering thing where, but it does apply really well. It's a really good analogy for photography, where in mountaineering, above 8,000 meters is where you just can't survive for long. So if you're going to get to where you want to go, which is the summit for mountaineers, then you have to get in and out really quickly. And that's the problem with having both. And I was finding that trying to still do well at my career was really interfering with photography, and vice versa. I was kind of really struggling to do both, and you have to have a plan to get through really quickly. Yeah, it was probably, I think I had, like I said, it's quite a slow burn with wedding photography because you get lots of time before the weddings and then they start crashing in. And I think I did 5 or 6, and it was like great side income, addictive side income. It's fantastic to have this extra income. And then the next year was 17 or 18. And suddenly I was thinking, oh, right, yeah, that was quite a tough year, actually. That was like editing from airport lounges during lunch breaks, everything else. The year after, I knew I had sort of 25, 30 booked in. And I thought, I'm going to have to decide what to do here. I can't, there's no way I can read it. I just don't have time to do it. That was the point I thought I've got to decide. And there was an incident where I was in a conference call. I was running this conference call I had a team in Mumbai, team in San Diego, where Steve's just come back from. And it was really stressful because the project I was running was way behind schedule. We'd done, it was shocking. So I was getting a real beating. My boss was in the room as well, so I could feel his gaze on the side of my face, sort of really judging me. And on my laptop in front of me popped up a message. I could hear my phone ringing. That was the first thing. My phone was buzzing on the table. I thought, right, ignore that. This is not the time. Then they texted. It came up on my laptop and it said, "Hi Nick, we're at the wedding venue. Are you on your way? We're getting a bit worried." And it was like, shit.
No way.
And the color drained out my face. And even like this person that was like really pissed off with me on this conference call said, "Are you all right?" They're really worried about me. And I said, I just need 5 minutes. So I got my phone and managed to go through my emails and found that it was actually a wedding venue visit that we'd planned. It was still terrible service we had to deliver, right? Because they'd taken a day off work and but at least I hadn't missed a wedding. But I thought I'd missed a wedding. And that's the point. I thought, right, I'm clearly not capable of doing a good job on both of these now. And where am I, what am I most passionate about? I thought, I used to be passionate about my job, like we often do when we start our career. But over time, it was fine. It wasn't bad, but the feelings I had from doing a really good job at a wedding and living in that creative industry that we're all in now, it was just unbeatable. And I thought, that's what I've got to do.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It was very much same with me. The job satisfaction you got from doing a good job at a wedding was just indescribable. From I was in IT, and it was just like delivering a project or fixing a problem or updating a spreadsheet. It just doesn't compare, does it?
And I think it's also the one-to-one. It's the gratification of doing something on a one-to-one basis, and the pleasure that you can give to somebody. I've just had an email today from we did a wedding on Sunday. We sent some previews over, and she said, "Oh, you're wonderful." And you don't get that in the corporate world.
There's no feedback, is there? You never know. No. Even if you've performed exceptionally.
Yeah.
Because I was in IT as well, I was in software. You've performed exceptionally well, but there's no real direct feedback to that. You don't see the benefits of it. But with a wedding, you can really see. And whether it could be some teacups, whatever you're doing, if the client loves it, you can really see that they've really loved what you've delivered, and that's just such a great feeling. And I think also
it is.
The opposite is true. Is if you cock something up, you've only got yourself to look at in the mirror, and you can think,
totally accountable.
I have to do something better next time. And I always think that's the ideal outcome from any photography shoot, is to deliver something that the client loves and think, I've got a few things I'm going to do even better next time, and that sort of keeps us moving forward.
Absolutely.
So at some point, Nick, you mentioned that you started teaching as well, photography. That I understand that's not just wedding photography, is it? You also do other genres of photography as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's a variety, really. It's people that are just starting in photography, so they might be beginners and they want to learn that. So I do some classes like that. But wedding photography is a popular session, so I have a two-day program, which sometimes runs as a group, but usually it's like one-to-one. That's really good. The flash stuff that I do as well is a really popular thing, because so many really talented photographers are just terrible at flash. It's such a hard thing to learn by trial and error, because it doesn't make any sense. Photography makes sense if you kind of got a basic understanding of physics and light, you can kind of get it. But flash doesn't make any sense at all. So that's really popular. But also like business stuff as well, helping people go through a similar journey to the one that I took myself on. And I'm very much open about coming from that from a position of not being the best photographer, not being, I've not done it for that long. I'm still improving, which I love about photography. But I do know how to run a business, and I do know what you need to do to take a brand, because that's what I did my whole career. So I've got that in the tank already, and that's been really handy.
Great stuff. Yeah,
definitely. I always say the business side is way more important than
totally.
the ability to take a nice photo.
Yeah.
Oh, it's 80-20. It's 80-20%, 80% business, 20% photography.
So as part of your teaching, have you noticed any sort of like trends or things that people sort of struggle with the most? I know you already mentioned flash.
Well, I think I do get because the people that come to me that are sometimes successful photographers that might just not be at the level that they want to be, or they're starting out. I tend to get, I'm not getting the photographers come to me that are just absolutely killing it, because they don't need my services. So I get I do get a bit of a blinkered view of it. But it seems to me that people whose businesses are not succeeding is because they're working on the wrong things. They're spending all of their time on the wrong stuff. And that's another session I'm doing the photography show as well, for people on that journey that are not getting the results that they want. And the other thing that us creators are terrible at selling ourselves and a service. And in fact, the easy way to sell stuff is not to bother. Let people show the benefits of what you've got, and let people buy it from you. Task management is another thing that creatives really struggle with. So we've all done this, where you might be editing. You think, right, I've got to get this edit done today. Think, I could do a Instagram post about these shots. They're lovely, So you start doing that, and then you think, maybe I'll do an ad. And you do that, and then by the end of the day, you've not done the ad, the post, or finished the wedding. You've gone down this rabbit hole, and trying to funnel those ideas and balance, make sure new ideas do get tracked and actioned on, but they don't derail us from the stuff that's actually going to make our business successful is a real pitfall that a lot of us have.
So you said that people are doing the wrong things. Then, you gave some examples there. What other things do you think that people do the wrong things too often?
Yeah, well, I had a guy editing is the first thing. I do an exercise where in the sessions where we list a photographer's goals, what they must achieve. It might be to leave their job, it might be for whatever financial reason, whatever, but what they have to achieve. but then we go through and what they like to shoot, what are the nice to haves, and then some pipe dream like Sony ambassador shooting weddings in Bali, five a year for 50 grand each. Which would be fine if anyone wants to offer me that.
Yeah, I mean,
it'd be lovely, wouldn't it?
But then we go
put our hands up on that one.
Yeah, okay, the key. I mentioned it first, and then we go through and say, right, what do you spend your time doing? And then we link the two up. And in every case, none of the time that's being spent is linking to any of those things. It's things like spending loads of time editing and spending time practicing, getting more shots, and those aren't the things that are going to make a difference. It's all the stuff that we push to the side, like SEO, actual intentional social media posting, marketing, all those sorts of things. There's a talk about the editing side. There was a guy who did my wedding photography program, and really good photographer. He picked it up really quickly, did his first wedding, and he reckoned he spent probably 8 sort of good long days, so 8-9 hour days, so 8 of these days, so like a week and a half, two weeks solid work editing, because he was removing every light switch, every stray hair on every photo of everybody. God love him. And then he delivered these photos. He thought, right, this is the best set I can possibly deliver. Got the feedback from the bride that was just beautiful feedback, the perfect review of like, you've captured every moment. We can't believe you did so well. Really loved having you part of the day, blah, blah, blah. And then she said in the email, there's about sort of 10 or 15 shots that are a bit dark. So could you just increase those? And he thought, well, that's weird because I've literally spent 2 weeks of my time editing these. So he tried to backtrack. So she sent him screenshots, and he'd realized that when he was practicing with Lightroom Classic, getting the export working, he did it before he'd edited, and he sent her the wrong folder. So he sent her all of the images exported without any edits in. So basically raw images. And so she was like over the moon with these photos. And after that, he then spent 2 weeks editing. And then the real kicker was that when he thought, oh God, right, he doesn't want to admit to this because it'd be embarrassing. So he just replaced all the images that he'd uploaded with the proper ones and let her know. He said, right, yeah, those 15 are fixed. And she just replied, cheers. It's like such a small bit of feedback for all of that work. Wow. And that's the thing. There's a point where it's good enough. And if you go past that, you're just spending time and money on stuff that the client's never going to see. And good enough doesn't mean less than they're happy with. It just means it's the point at which if you spend more time on it, you're not getting any extra benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I said this a little while ago, something similar, where I was like, editing is basically just dead time. It's not productive time at all.
No, it's not.
People photographers are the worst for it. We like to be martyrs to the cause, don't we? Like, I've spent all this time editing, but it doesn't earn you any extra money.
Well, you see on Facebook groups, don't you? Often people asking, I can't decide between these two edits, and they've gone so far down the line. And you're looking at these two photos, and it's like a 1970s spot the ball competition in the paper, isn't it? You can't see any difference between these two things, and they're just like, and they've got to the point where they're not substantially making any improvement or change to the photo apart from in their mind. And that's
I must admit, I often run down the rabbit hole with presets like that. Do you like this one, or do you like this one? And my friends are like, they look the same, mine. They really do.
There's a phrase I use in the business coaching that I do, and it's perfect is the enemy of good enough.
Absolutely.
Yes, that's right.
Absolutely.
And it's so true, really. Are you delivering what you've contractually agreed to do? Yes. Then why are you carrying on doing more work? Because it's pure cost. It's pure cost to the business, really.
Okay, so I think we all agree that editing is not a great use of time. The quicker you can do a good job, the better.
Yeah.
Are you using any AI to help you this year? Because obviously that's the big buzz topic of the last 12 to 18 months, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't actually. I have an outsource. So I do. Well, actually, my partner Dawn does the culling for me. So she's really good at picking out those moments from the day.
Oh wow!
I use
some culling for you.
I know.
My wife does mine.
The dream. Oh, am I the only one that culled my own wedding? You lazy buggers.
I hate culling.
I hate culling as well.
So does she.
Loves it.
So does she. She doesn't like it.
Sam loves it.
But I do have an outsourced editor, which I use for most of the weddings when it's at that busiest peak period. Otherwise, you find that, and I got an outsourced editor because in about 2019, it was before COVID, I worked out in October, I looked at my Lightroom and I thought, I've got about 23 weddings to deliver and I hadn't edited them yet, and it was like, oh my God, so every 10 minutes I'd spend having a cup of tea, I thought I should be editing if try and watch a TV program, I thought I should be editing. And a couple might be emailing asking, well, when will our photos come? And I thought, bloody hell, we've got like 15 other weddings before I even get to yours. So that was a massive weight off my shoulders. If I was if we're 5 years into the future and AI like that we've got now was a thing back in 2019, then that may have been a different decision. That would have been a way that I may have pulled back some of that time and used something like Imagine or something to do that for me.
So on your current workflow, your partner does the culling, and then you've got an editor who does the editing. Do they just do the basics, the sliders, or do they actually go and do the spot removal and skin smoothing?
Do all of that. I mean, the way it actually works is that I because I always do a preview for a wedding couple.
Me too.
So I might do 20, 30 pictures. So I'll edit those myself anyway, and so I tag those in the gallery, so the editor knows firstly which ones are done already. And also can kind of see the vibe that I was going for, because it tends to be throughout the day. So they can see what the edit I'm looking for different bits of the day. And that works really well to sort of give her a guide. But yeah, she does a good level of stuff. It does need a bit of tweaking when it comes back, sometimes, because it's impossible for anyone to be in your mind, isn't it? And so I will always run through the whole set and just nudge them maybe a little bit in color balance. Sometimes there's one thing, right, that wasn't what I was aiming for at all. And I might just re-edit it. But that process takes me 2 or 3 hours, not the sort of 12 hours.
I'm totally with you. I mean, I used to outsource way before, AI tools came along, but they just used to do the basics. But even now I've realized I've got, people I use, a company called Udio, during the summer peak months who do that level of editing. So when it comes back again, I check through it, but it might be the odd edit or two, but by and large, it's ready to go.
Yeah.
And it's just so much more cost effective. Yes, it costs me. Of course it does. And it'll cost you as well. But
it's a cost of sales, isn't it? Yeah.
The time it saves you so you can do something more productive.
Absolutely.
That's and also shoot. All you need to do is shoot 1, maybe 2 more weddings, and you've more than made up that time. And you've saved yourselves hours and hours of family time or leisure time. You're not doing that, like you said, Nick, sitting there in the evening trying to edit away, feeling guilty because you want to watch TV with your
And that's the word, guilt, isn't it? You're sitting in your living room and
the pressure and guilt.
Somebody's calling you saying you should be in here, you should be in here. And it's nice not to have that.
Yeah. Although I did once get busted by my wife because I went a little bit too far. This is back in the day when I still took my camera places, and I'd come back from my sister-in-law's wedding, and as a guest, I'd just taken a few photos. And I really couldn't be bothered to edit the photos. After much nagging, I decided to outsource them. But she busted me because she went, I can tell when you've done it and when the company's done it because they're more consistent.
Well, at least it was that way.
I was like, got as well told off.
There's a lot of gloom and doom being talked in the wedding industry at the moment. If you hang out in some of the Facebook groups, I can't get on Facebook. They had a glitch the other day.
Yeah.
I can't get back on.
I thought I'd been hacked.
I think everyone did.
Me too. Well, I did what they told me to do and re-signed in, and now I can't get back on again. Man. But anyway, if you hang out in some of the Facebook groups, there's a lot of negativity at the moment about the wedding industry. People saying it's way down and so on. But what are your thoughts, Nick, as to the wedding business for the next sort of 2 or 3 years moving forward?
It feels pretty similar to me. I mean, don't people always say that? Isn't that a thing every year that people say, weddings?
I think that's right.
It's like any Facebook group. In a car that you might get, or a camera, you're going to get people that are complaining about it. We're not going to go onto Facebook and say, weddings seem pretty healthy, I'm really pleased with myself, because you just look like a dick, so you would never do that. But so you do tend to get a bit of a skewed view, I think, of the industry through things like that. I do think that couples are being careful. I think, like all of us, people are looking for ways to save money. Cost of living is going up, and for sure that's hitting things. I'm definitely seeing people looking at sort of smaller packages of mine rather than the full day, and that's fine, because I figure if I have a bit of a lie-in, then that's fine. And if I can come back in the evening, that's fine as well, because I don't just sacrifice the whole day. But usually you can upsell them back in anyway, so it's not, but so I do see a bit of that going on. But in terms of numbers, it's about the same as last year for me, anyway.
Yeah, we're the same. Yeah,
I think likewise, numbers wise, I'm pretty much bob on, if not a little bit above. But I think as an industry, it is definitely down, but it doesn't mean within the industry everybody's down. There are still always going to be people who are doing just fine. And I think in times like this is when you really sort of see who is prioritizing the business and marketing side and who are very reactive and just waiting for the inquiries to come to them.
Yeah, I mean, you certainly see in a lot of the, sort of regional Facebook groups for, I don't know, it might be brides and grooms in Wales or whatever, you see quite a lot of businesses offering a full day photography, 350 quid, plus film for 600 in total, and you think, well, that feels like a really hard thing. It's almost like a bit of a race to the bottom. Yeah. But
that's always been around though, hasn't it?
I think so.
When I started. Yeah. Yeah. But I think one of the things I've seen though are certain venues which historically have never offered discounts. They are offering discounts.
Right.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's something I think you can't deny, and a local venue has recently shut because they've been flooded so many times. I think they just can't get the business anymore. And the couples who have had to find new places, by and large, have not only been able to find new venues, they've been able to pick the same date. So they've literally been ringing up venues going, can I have this date? Yes. And that would never have happened.
No, that's true. Yeah. You're looking at Wednesday.
So I think overall it is fair to say that the raw numbers are down, but it just means that you just got to hustle harder.
I think there's enough business out there, and I think the ones that are complaining about it are the same ones that were complaining in 2020 with COVID and sitting watching Netflix all day and saying, "Isn't it terrible?" And then whereas the rest of us had to go out and find a way of making some money. You've
got to pivot, haven't you? You've got to be able to change, and that's always the case, and it's always going to be the case in business. I think that because the market moves forward. And if you're stuck offering the same thing that you were 10 years ago, then it's not really what people want.
No, absolutely. So where do you see yourself in 5 years' time or even 10 years' time, Nick?
Well, I would like to do, I really love the balance I've got at the moment. So the training side, things like the talks that I'm doing and the wedding photography and the commercial photography. I really love those, my time being spent across those things. I know not last year before where we all did so many weddings to catch up through the COVID, the pandemic, doing sort of 50 odd 60 weddings with a load of associates shooting me. I realized that wasn't where I wanted to be. And I thought it was before. I thought, well, this is a really lucrative thing. This would be a really good thing for business, but it does come with its stress of managing. You're then managing a team. And for people that have come from a job where you were doing that before, that was the reason why you left that job, because you're not really invested in that kind of thing. So,
absolutely.
So I'd like to continue to that. I do want to do more sort of talks and things like that. I think it is it's something I enjoy, and I think when I'm on podcasts and things and do talks, you do get really lovely feedback from people that have said things like, "I would love to be a professional photographer. I just imagined I was too old, or I couldn't do it because I don't have time," and all those sorts of things. And it's kind of proof that all of us have got different stories, and most of us are proof that there's no one cookie cutter photographer that's going to be successful. You can be any shape or size, and whatever your journey is, there is a way through that. So I do love that part of it as well.
Has there been a moment in your career so far, Nick, that you've been particularly proud of?
I think it's really important when you start any business to decide what your goals are. Like I said earlier, I did that exercise that I do with other people on myself, and the things like the photography show and being regarded as, sort of some kudos in the industry. It's not, that is, I do like that. I do like the fact of being a bit of not an authority, but giving advice and helping. That is a position I like to be in.
Being respected.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's much better.
I get that. Yeah.
And I think by kind of ignoring that or being a bit embarrassed about that, you're never going to get to have fulfillment in what you're doing. So things like the photography show was something I always wanted to do. And I didn't know how I was going to get there or what the journey might be to get there, but that's now something that's happened. So, so that's been a real success. And I am really proud of that. And I know we're not great as Brits about, say, patting ourselves on the back and, but it's been bloody hard work. I've worked my bloody arse off, to get.
I'm sure you have.
It's so tough. And I completely agree with you. People should be proud when they've reached a certain level and people respect them and look to them for advice. And, just the other day I saw a horrible thread where people were slagging off some very well-known sort of photographers just by virtue of the fact that they were, well-known on, and slaying it on YouTube. And they were questioning, how they're doing this and they must be buying views. Yeah. And I was just like, you just sound dead bitter and jealous, and
Absolutely.
it just didn't sit well with me at all. So I think you should be proud, definitely.
I think that is a bit of a trope, isn't it? That kind of, you do see a lot of people like that, like the jaded photographer,
Yeah, exactly.
And that's, I definitely don't want to get to that. So, you do want to just keep it light and keep moving with the industry and doing different things. And I know that I work best when I am thinking, right, what's next and how can I change to do something different? And that's what I do every wedding, is always trying to look for something that's different from what I've done before, which is especially hard, isn't it? When you be at the same venue fairly frequently, you're thinking, we all know you could go into like that 80-20%, you could probably do a 80% job with 20% of the effort at a venue you've shot at before. You know where the light is, you know where the good times are going to be. But then at the end of the day, you're not thinking, I haven't really done anything that's completely different for that couple. And
doesn't it get to the point though where you think, obviously sometimes at some weddings everything's kicking off and it's all great, but there are some weddings where not a lot happens. You're not going to be able to push that creative window that much because you're not given the opportunities.
No, that's right.
And delivering a good enough job is the best you can sort of hope to achieve sometimes.
Well, I think some weddings, because couples are all different, aren't they? And if a couple's really quiet, when you meet them for a consultation meeting, if they're really quiet, then and a bit shy, their family are probably going to be similar and their friends are going to be similar. So those ones, you do have to, I certainly have to dig a bit deeper, and I can put on the sort of smiley kind of more sociable things, but it takes it out of me. At the end of the day, I think, right, I need a glass of wine in a dark room for like a couple hours. I do find it hard.
Dagger and I do obviously love a wedding where it's all kicking off and the party's banging. But like just the other week, we both took a wedding on knowing that the couple are very shy, they're reserved, they want the privacy. So we've agreed not to share anything online.
Yeah.
But all they want is an honest, faithful documentation of everything that happens.
That's fine.
And, as long as the photos are good enough for them, that's all they're after. They don't expect it all to be kicking off on the dance floor or surprises happening,
It's an interesting thing, isn't it? That I wonder, when you have all of the weddings that we do, I'm always thinking, like, when you see this reportage or Photographers Keeping It Real awards, I wonder how much effort goes into getting the photos that are going to get awards, because weddings like that are not going to be those sorts of weddings, are they? That stuff's not.
No, there's the exceptions, aren't they? So those are the moments which, and don't get me wrong, some people are better at anticipating moments,
100%,
and composing a composition of the photo which makes that photo interesting, and it's a real skill. But there are a lot of photos which are exceptions where something unexpected happened, and that's why it won.
Yeah.
And tuning into that is such a skill, isn't it? I'm always really, envious of or appreciative of people that can just tune into to think, these two things are happening. They're going to combine at some point, and that's going to absolutely bang.
When someone's winning like 20, 30, This Is Reportage Awards or Fearless or Photographers Keeping It Real Awards, that's not a lucky
it's
moment.
not. No.
You know what I mean? It's like, this happened and they just happened to be in the right place at the right time. Yeah. That shows consistency. They've been observant. They've got techniques. They just keep shooting, and they've probably, being honest, they've probably shot like 1 million frames to get.
Well, that's what I'm going to say. I think there is also the case they do shoot. I know some photographers that shoot 15,000, 16,000 frames at a wedding, and that's video almost. And I think there's also a bit of serendipity. So the only award I've ever won, was two bored and pissed off looking grandparents at a wedding with an aunt who looked like a bloke in drag. And it was a family wedding in a marquee, nothing which happened, but there was just a moment that I saw. Yeah. So there is a bit of luck around it as well. But I do agree, Martin, I think you do have to have
but sometimes you also make your own look.
You do.
I was chatting to a mate of mine that there's one, quite a lot of reportage awards and things, and he's got this really good view of it. He's the opposite of a gear monkey. He changes cameras when they completely break, and it's because he would rather spend that money on going to things like Doc Day where he can socialize and ask, and be in a community where you're getting ideas and getting feedback from other people. And feedback's hard, isn't it? Because we don't often like feedback on our own work. But that's where he puts a lot of his time and money investing in his business is to be in that whole circle of people.
Logically, that makes far more sense. Yeah, that makes far more sense. But then I know me, and I don't know whether you're the same, Nick, but I love a new piece of glass. Like, I've lost my marbles this way. I was going to say shit then, but I've just said it.
That's okay. We'll mark it as explicit. This one.
Of the Sony announcing a 24-70 f2, and I was like, "Oh my god, I want that lens."
I really
want
the problem one for me is the 50 1.2, the GM.
Oh, it's beautiful. It really is beautiful.
50. I never shoot 50. I've got a nifty 50, and it literally sits in my bag. I can't remember the last time I actually got it out of the bag.
I just find it a real gap. Like in the evening, especially if I drop down because I'm normally 35, 7200 through most of the day, especially in brighter weather. Later on, I tend to go to maybe a 24. Sometimes a 14 on the dance floor. I love all those things. I find like if I've got like a 24 on, a 35 isn't different enough. Whereas 85 is then too tight and I just can't get anything. So I just do feel like a 50 would be a real gap. But I know it's not going to earn me any more money. And so I'm trying to be really logical about it.
Yeah, but it's lovely.
Well, sometimes you've got to enjoy, we spoke about this earlier, you've got to enjoy your job as well.
Yeah, true.
If buying a new piece of glass makes you happy, then
absolutely,
then you can afford it, then do it.
I need a new photocopier though.
Yeah.
I'm shooting 24-50 all day because I like the wider look anyway, and I'm shooting 24 on an R4. So if necessary, I can crop the backside of it anyway.
But I think one thing I did want to add though, as much as we're talking about gear and stuff, you always have to make sure the basics are covered first. So
absolutely,
people see me and hear me and they're like, "Oh, Martin loves his lenses and gears and stuff." But I always make sure everything else is covered. The taxis, the admin side, the business side, the backups, make sure all those are covered.
Yeah,
it's not just me going out frivolously buying new lenses.
Also, there's not much food in the house, but I've got a new lens. So that's good.
So, Nick, it's been great catching up with you. One more question from me, then I guess one from Martin as well. So the question I like to ask, and it's a bit of a theoretical one, but if you could go back to a 21-year-old Nick, and I don't know how old you are now, but I'm not going to pry, but if you could go back to a 21-year-old Nick, what would you tell yourself? I
think I would tell myself to be much less worried about changing jobs. I think when I was younger, I was just any kind of change I was really resistant against. So I stayed, and it was fine, but in my career, I stayed with companies too long. The idea of changing to do something completely different wouldn't have been on my radar. And actually, it's always fine, isn't it? We're always worried about things like that. And just being a bit more bold in saying, do you know what? Screw it. I'm going to give that a go. And I did do that. And I got to that point later in life. And I'm always so glass half empty, right? I'm always thinking, I should have bloody done photography when I was 21. But then, as I say, I think the reason I was able to ramp the business up so quickly was because I didn't do that. And I did have all the business sort of acumen in place. So it did have its benefits. But even things like, creativity and, I do like to sing and music and things. Right. I'd have loved to be in bands when I was younger, but I had to wait till I was about 35 before I would have just had the courage to even get on a stage. So I did it then, by which time I was far too old and fat to be jumping around the stage, but I still did it, because you stop caring, don't you, as you get older. So I would definitely, that would be my advice to myself, is just stop worrying too much what people think.
And one last question for you, Martin.
I don't think I can be that question, Steve. So I think what I'll do is I'll ask Nick which days you're appearing at the photography show, so listeners can come and see you.
Yeah, great. So I'm there on the 16th, 17th and 18th. On the 16th and 17th, there's the Making the Leap session. So that's going through this kind of death zone of trying to navigate, 2 full-time jobs. So that's at 10:10 in the Masterclass Theatre. So that's the 16th and 17th. On the 18th, is more about, it's a session at 11:45 in the same place, Masterclass Theatre, about us all doing the wrong things, typically when we're starting a business, and the things that matter and the things that don't matter so much. So that's the 2 sessions.
And did you say those are paid sessions rather than...
I believe so, yeah.
Or do you just walk in?
I think they are, but I'm sure you can get...
So people need to check out the website and see...
Yeah, go on to the Photography Show website and work out, tickets. I think when you apply for tickets, I think it's a sort of tick box. But,
I might try and come and see you on the Monday myself.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, me too. I'm there Monday, yeah.
No heckling. No heckling from the back, please.
As if we would.
Nick sucks!
No, we wouldn't do that.
No, we wouldn't. No,
Where's the best place for the listener to see more of your work?
nickchurchphotography.co.uk websites. That's got all of my wedding work, and there's a training section. If you go to the top right, there's a bit on education as well. So that's where you can see all the courses that I offer. Instagram and Facebook is just at Nick Church Photography. And if I could mention there's a Facebook group called the Nick Church Photography Collective, which is a really lovely group of photographers, from beginners, loads of professionals in there as well. And it's just a really good, inclusive, chilled out space where there's no idiots allowed. So And that's an experience being in other groups.
That's me stuff then, yeah. That's it.
There's no me in already.
Present company accepted.
Yeah.
Well, when I'm allowed back on Facebook, I'll come and hang out.
Excellent. Sorry, we'll see you then.
And we'll put that in the show notes as well, so people can hopefully
absolutely, yeah. So thanks again, Nick, for coming on the show today. And if you've enjoyed the show, listener, then make sure you subscribe to the show. Also, give us a review on Apple or Spotify. We'd really appreciate that. Martin and I will be back in a couple of weeks with another guest. But in the meantime, happy shooting out there, and we'll talk to you soon.